Come on, Mario. Let's do this, dude. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on! Mario! What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of us checking out the TCG. Right now, we're looking at some sick mechanics coming from XY Steam Siege. And on this first slide, as you can see, we have Volcanion EX and Dual Type Mega Gardevoir EX. That shiny looks sick, and it is evil as hell with that Despair Ray. But first, let's start off with what Volcanion EX has to offer with its ability Steam Up, which is not too bad, actually. It says, apparently, once during your turn, before your attack, you may discard a fire energy card from your hand, and if you do, during this turn, your basic fire-type Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon before applying weakness, etc. And that's actually pretty awesome because that means you can use it on itself since it happens to be fire. If you want to run, I don't know, a Charizard deck or anything really with fire, I would more than suggest this. Volcanic Key is also a big attack. As you can see, 2 fire, 1 colorless for 130. And its effect says that this Pokemon's attack cannot be used during your next turn. And that is all fine and dandy. It's actually not too big of a deal. As you guys will see later on in this video, we'll find some workarounds with this effect. Next up, we do have Mega Gardevoir EX with its attack Despair Ray, doing 100 plus damage, and discard as many of your benched Pokemon as you like, and this attack does 10 more damage for each Pokemon discarded in this way. Now, while this attack is impressive in the sense that it has a chance to hit for Fairy and Psychic weaknesses, that is pretty cool, actually, although I must say personally that this move is not that impressive when hitting without weakness being the case. I mean, if you think about it, really, if you have a Sky Field, you're going to have 8 Pokemon on your bench, you discard all 8, you're hitting for 190 without weakness. Now, while that does knock out some regular Pokemon EX, you're not going to be knocking out many Megas with that, which is why I just don't find this attack that exciting. It is kind of cool in the sense that this is like a dark Gardevoir. This is an evil Gardevoir. Really cool, but again, its viability, I'm not quite sold on it yet. And then next up, we will be looking at Xerneas and Klefki. Actually, really cool things coming from them. We'll start off with Klefki, actually, and its ability, which says that if Klefki is on your bench, you may discard all cards attached to this Pokemon and attach this Pokemon to one of your other Pokemon as a Pokemon tool card. And as long as this Pokemon is attached to a Pokemon, prevent all damage done to that Pokemon by the attacks of your opponent's Mega Evolution Pokemon. At the end of your opponent's next turn, discard this card. Now, holy crap, like, this is just a nice way to prevent Megas. It's a safeguard against Megas, really. And it's just a nice way to clear up bench space as well. Like, once you get something that you want to protect, boom, attach Klefki, and you're good to go. Now, it does only last till the end of your opponent's next turn, so you do have to discard Klefki after that, but if you need something to get you out of a bad situation quickly, this is something you could certainly use, and I think it's really important that people start trying this once the set is officially out in August for America. And then next up, we'll look at Xerneas Break with its attack Lifestream, and I see some serious potential with this. It does 20 times damage, and goes further to say that this attack does 20 times the damage for the amount of energy attached to all of your Pokemon. So this attack being combined with standard Xerneas' Geomancy can make for some hefty plays. Especially when hitting for weakness, of course. That kind of goes without saying. But, I mean, think about it. If you do want to have Skyfield, it's probably not even necessary to do that because you can't really run too much energy in a deck anyway. But if you start with standard Xerneas, Geomancy the crap out of your first few turns, you're getting 2 fairy energy on your Pokemon at a time. That is great. And then you eventually evolve into Xerneas Break, and that is when you live stream. You can get some decent damage without having to sacrifice that many prizes when it gets knocked out, when compared to maybe using like a Mega Gardevoir EX or Florges EX when you have to give up 2 prize cards. So something to consider, I think, for every player. And now, of course, for the big guys themselves, we have Steelix EX and Mega Steelix EX. First off, we have Steelix EX's attack. The first one would be Wild Edge, which does 80 plus damage, saying that you may do 50 more damage, and if you do, this Pokemon does 20 damage to itself. Not too bad, because you're looking at 130 damage total. There are plenty of strong Pokemon in the game that you can knock out with one hit if you choose to do so, and it also does 260 damage when hitting Pokemon like fairies who are weak to steel types. We also have its second attack with Iron Tail with 100 times damage, and what it says is that you flip a coin until you get tails. This attack does 100 damage times the number of heads. So, bam! You're getting huge EX attacks with this guy, and while the first attack, Wild Edge, does have a drawback in that you're doing 20 damage to yourself, again, just going to say that later on in this video we may be looking at something that can help with these little situations as far as the effects of these attacks and how they can work against you. Now next up is the big bro to Steelix, Mega Steelix EX, with its attack Canyon Axe. Now I'm not quite sure whether or not Mega Steelix is worth running compared to Steelix EX. I mean, you're going to be getting a lot more HP, which is always handy. But anyway, let's get started with Canyon Axe, saying that it does 160 damage. And it does 10 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Now couple this Pokemon with a Muscle Band, and you'll be knocking out some of the strongest Pokemon EX in the game, while of course spreading some light damage across the field as well. Now, one huge partner Pokemon that I think will do greatly in Dex will be Magearna EX that you see in front of you. This guy has an ability called Mystic Heart, which prevents all effects of your opponent's attacks except damage done to each of your Pokemon that has metal energy attached to it. So it's kind of simple to see the possible synergy going on here. It also has its attack called Soul Blaster, which does 120 damage apparently, but it also, the translation says that during your next turn, this Pokemon's Soul Blaster attack does 60 damage. Now again, these are drawbacks within your own Pokemon's attacks. These effects are going against you. Again, as I said, there will be something later on in this video that will kind of alleviate this situation, I think. And now it is time for the fire guys of this set. This is where the potential is lying, guys. Like, holy crap. Save up your cash, because these are the ones you're going to want to spend your money on to like really soup up your fire decks in general. We have Pyroar to start off, Baby Pyroar with Nitro Charge. It does 60 damage, and you search your deck for fire energy and attach it to this Pokemon. Shuffle your deck afterwards. This is going to come in handy because it also has its attack Devastate for a little more energy, and it does 90 damage. Before doing damage though, you discard all Pokemon tools attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So you're souping up your attacks, you're going to be able to afford something that comes on long later, and you're taking off tools from your opponent. That is dire in this game right now. And next up we have Pyroar Break with its attack called Kaiser Tackle, and the translation says that it does 180 damage, and this Pokemon does 50 damage to itself. Again, another effect that goes against your own Pokemon, but that is something that normally happens with fire type Pokemon. Either you're discarding energy, you're hurting yourself a little bit. These are powerful cards in the game. So something to remember. Now, another engine that we can use within a fire deck now is Volcanion. Not Volcanion EX, but the one you see in front of you on this slide. We have Volcanion EX with its attack called Power Heater. At least that's what the card's attack is called right now. In English, of course, translations can change, but for now this is the name, and it does 20 damage. Not very much, but the thing is the effect that you get from it. What you do is 20 damage, and then you choose 2 of your benched Pokemon and attach a fire energy from your discard pile to each of them. Again, so 1, Pyroar soups up itself. And then you get Volcanion, which starts feeding your bench fire energy as well. And this is going to be important because if you're going to have Pyroar on the bench and you're using Volcanion to soup it up, and if you have a Volcanion EX as well, you're just going to be feeding your Pokemon constantly. And so that way, once it's time and the time is right and appropriate to start swinging, you retreat your Volcanion by any means possible, and then you get out your main attacker and go to town on your opponent. And now another duo that we have that are pretty cool cards in my opinion. We have Yveltal Break and Clawitzer, along with Clawitzer Break. Now I know I don't have Clawitzer Break's card animation on the page right now, but that's just because like the only images I could find were super low res. Maybe you guys by now have been able to find something, but at the time of recording this video, yeah, not too impressive as far as the visuals go. But anyway, let's start off with Clawitzer with its ability being Mega Booster. This is what makes Clawitzer awesome, and it says that once during your turn, before your attack, you may choose a special energy card from your hand and attach it to one of your Mega Evolution Pokemon. This could come in handy. Like, yes, you're evolving to a Stage 1 Pokemon, but Stage 1 Pokemon are not that big of like a dedication or anything like that. It's not too huge of a commitment, so you can pull it off. And again, like that means you get a second attachment per turn, which is pretty cool because you're going to want your Mega Pokemon ready to attack when the time is right. Next to move on, we do have a Clawitzer Break, and I know again the card art is not on the page right now, but let's just go with its attack. It's for one colorless energy, and it's called Lock On. And it goes like this. During your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. And during your next turn, your Pokemon's attacks do 120 more damage to the defending Pokemon. Now, when not hitting for weakness, this is how Dual-type Mega Gardevoir EX can be impressive, in my opinion. Along with any Pokemon, you give a boosted 120 damage to their attacks, and I mean, anyway, really. So, this is something really cool. If you can get Clawitzer Break back into the bench and get your main attacker out there, then you are good. That is freaking awesome. It's just another way to hit really big. I've never heard of such a boost before. It's kind of like a mini G booster in a way. But you can keep using it back and forth. Say you float stone your main attacker, get them out, or you can rush in with Keldeo, use some sort of combo like that during expanded. That might be something really huge. Next up, we're going to talk about Yveltal Break with its attack Night of Disaster, doing 120 damage as it says, but it also reads that this attack does 30 damage to each of your opponent's benched Pokemon that already has damage counters on it. Now, this is something that you could probably combo with, say, maybe Steelix or more obviously Crobat. Of course, there's always Greninja. I don't know if you really want to use Greninja, but I mean, it is a cool card in Pokemon. But I mean, Stage 2s aren't that viable, so go with something a little more ideal, such as like maybe, I don't know, Mega Steelix, or of course, Bats are huge in this game. Bats are like the one Stage 2 line you're going to want. For those of you that aren't familiar with how Crobat and Golbat work, when you evolve Zubat into Golbat, it has its ability which allows you to attach damage counters to your opponent's Pokemon, anyone you want. And then if you evolve to Crobat, you get I think it's 30 damage counter, or 3 damage counters really. So up to 30 damage to a Pokemon in any way that you want. Pretty freaking broken. And comboing this with Yveltal EX, you can start multiplying exponentially. Now, next up for Steam Siege, we have some trainers that I feel may have some interesting mechanics to them. First off, we'll start with Greedy Die, which is an interesting gamble for sure, and it says that if you take this card as your face-down prize card before putting it into your hand, flip a coin. If heads, take another prize card. Now, I'm not sure how many people are going to actually run this thing because it's quite a low chance. I mean, it's 50-50. Either you're going to get it or you won't. And if you don't, then that's all you draw as your prize. Nothing really handy at all. You had the chance to get something, but now you got tails. So all you have is a useless card in your hand that I guess is discard fuel for like an Ultra Ball or something. So, but still, I mean, if you get that heads, holy crap, hypeness will be around you because you just got to draw yourself another prize card. I mean, you could just greedy die yourself to victory if you really wanted to. Anyway, next up, we have Special Charge, which is you can see the special energy symbols on the front of it, and it reads that you shuffle 2 special energy cards from your discard pile back into your deck. And we don't really have any other ways in the card game to shuffle special energy cards back to you, so this is something really cool. No, they don't go directly to your hand, which would be brilliant, but maybe that would be slightly overpowered. So again, to have Special Charge, at least recycle it back into your deck is pretty cool in my opinion. Next up, what I've been hinting at throughout the course of this video, it would be Pokemon Ranger, which reads that if you use it, you remove all effects of attacks on both players and all Pokemon. So, Steelix EX hurting itself. Not anymore when you play Pokemon Ranger that turn. anything like that. If you have some sort of negative effects, it's gone. I believe Pyroar hurts itself as well, doing like 50 or 60 damage. That is taken care of with Pokemon Ranger. You could really pick and choose when you want it to work. You can have it work on your Pokemon or on your opponents. You know, it's really up to you. I mean, in the end, it's kind of just like a nice tool to use. Maybe run one or two of them. I mean, it depends on really how defensive you want to be. Alright, and another wild new supporter we have in this set is called Ninja Boy, and this one kind of stood out to me in a fun way. It says that you search your deck for a basic Pokemon and switch it with one of your basic Pokemon that's already in play. And then any cards attached to that Pokemon, damage counters, special conditions, and effects on it are now on the new Pokemon. And then you shuffle the first basic Pokemon back into your deck. Now, this is something that's like a pretty big switcheroo in my opinion. It could work pretty darn well. Again, this is one phrase I've been using, is that it is in my opinion. For all you know, no one will use this card, but I feel like it has something great to it that people can really use. There's a Bastiodon in this set. I would recommend you guys look it up. It has an attack on here that might be able to use Ninja Boy quite well. Actually, there are plenty cards. I mean, if you just want to make sure that your Pokemon doesn't get knocked out, if you don't want to give up those prize cards, use Ninja Boy and then you're good. Just make sure, you know, you spread around the damage first, like if you can, or like make sure it's not very damaged at all. That, because again, whatever damage counters you have on that first Pokemon will be now added to the new Pokemon coming in its stead. And now for the final slide of this video, we have some fun stuff. Like every set in the card game, there are going to be some wacky mechanics in there, and some of these may be far-fetched and maybe not so much. No pun intended, but I'm going to take it anyway. Anyway, let's start off with Nidoking, with its ability King's Palace. Each of your Nidoqueen's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Frickin' fun, right? Like, it's like, you know, the family tree's getting together, and you get the cute little Nidoran male hanging out with its daddy. It's kind of cute. And again, like, you just get to soup up your Nidoqueen's attacks. Like, all of them do 20 more damage. That is pretty cool in my opinion. And its attack, although it's expensive, it does, let's see, 2 Psychics and 1 Colorless Energy, does 60 plus damage. And this attack does 30 more damage for each evolved Pokemon on your bench. If you accompany this with Skyfield, like, who knows how much damage you could really ramp up with this. It's kind of cool. I mean, I don't really know what to think. Shit can get crazy, though. I'm sorry I cussed. Anyway, and just because, you know, I only really covered one other dual type from this set, for this particular video, I thought it might be fun to show another one, and that's with Bisharp, shiny Bisharp actually as well, with its dark and steel typing, of course, and it has its first attack being Retaliate, doing 30 plus damage. And it goes on translating that if any of your Pokemon were knocked out by damage from your opponent's attack during his or her last turn, this attack does 60 more damage. This means 90 for 1 Colorless Energy, like Retaliate. Yo, not bad at all. And then its second attack, Mach Claws, 60 damage, you know, 2 energy just to do 60, but luckily it isn't affected by resistance, which is nice. You're dealing at least 60 every time, maybe 120. I mean, you double your odds of hitting for weakness now. There are plenty of good fairy Pokemon in the game. It's still typing, can really help out. Psychic typing can help against out like the ghost psychic Pokemon that are in the game. Not too many huge ones that are weak to dark right now, but again, that metal typing is what is important. That will negate and slow down your opponent's fairy type decks. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it. And if you guys would please just take a moment to subscribe, like the video, if you could share it with your friends. Those of you that feel like you have friends that want to get to know the card game very well, I want to do some pretty cool stuff with this channel as far as introducing mechanics to the game for experienced players, seasoned, and ones that are very new. So if you have any suggestions or anything you'd really like to learn or see, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. You can also tweet me with @AJApplesauce. I'm going to leave plenty of links in the description for you guys. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great one. Bye-bye.